The Nut Job is a 2014 animated feature film directed by Peter Lepeniotis, and I really wanted to like this because it looked cute. The animation style is absolutely gorgeous. But unfortunately, I didn't enjoy it, and I can identify why. Sometimes there are films where we don't really care for them, but we don't really know why. But with The Nut Job, there are kind of two reasons for that. One is a slightly weaker reason, and it's that I just didn't find the narrative that exciting. It's not bad as such, it's well developed, the pacing is fine, but it just didn't really entertain me at all. But the other reason I didn't like this is because of the characters. I think there was maybe one character in this that I actually liked, and I'll talk more about the characters in a moment. We do have a great voice cast, which I did love. To name just a few, we have Arnett, Brendan Fraser, Katherine Heigl, Rudolph, Liam Neeson. Really solid voice cast. Obviously, that comes across in the quality of the voice acting, and I think the voices suited the characters very well. The narrative is about a squirrel called Surly, and he is banished from the park because he causes problems. And he's in the city trying to find nuts, and he also becomes involved in this bank robbery with these humans. And unfortunately, I really hated the human characters. I just feel like they were in it far too much. They were boring. They were really not interesting characters. And in fact, there were times when I actually actively disliked the characters. And it would have worked better, at least in my opinion, if those characters were maybe more so in the background, if we didn't focus on them quite as much. We got things from their perspective. And I think it would have been better if that was never the case. With animal films, animal animations like this, usually the human characters are in the background. They might drive the narrative forward, but we don't really get things from their perspective. And I think having it from their perspective occasionally, I didn't like it. In fact, I say occasionally, it was quite frequently. I didn't care for it. I didn't like them as characters. I wasn't interested in what they brought to the narrative. Unfortunately, most of the animal characters are not very likable either. Surly was not a likable protagonist, and honestly, I don't really care for any of the animals in this. There were one or two that were okay. There were a couple who I thought were certainly watchable at the very least, but for the most part, I just didn't care for any of the animals in this, and unfortunately, that means that I didn't like any of the characters. There were a couple who were okay, but for the most part, I kind of found them to be very irritating, particularly Surly. He's not, in my opinion, a likable protagonist. So I didn't like the humans, I didn't like the animals, and the narrative wasn't interesting. So unfortunately, this is not one that I enjoyed. Visually, it is stunning. The animals are beautifully animated, the setting is absolutely gorgeous, the animation is really lovely to look at, the voice acting is very good, so there are some benefits. We also have a pretty decent soundtrack as well, the music is quite good. So there are some positives, but for me, I didn't enjoy it. There's not enough in this for me to come away from it saying, I thought that was a decent film. If you're a fan of animation in general, particularly animal-based animations, then I'd say watch it to form your own opinion. There are some positives. But in general, The Nut Job is not one that I enjoyed. And if you decide not to watch it, I don't think you'd be missing out on very much.